When people talk about the golden age of Hollywood, they often imagine bright lights, glamorous gowns, and shining movie screens that made stars look larger than life. But behind the beauty and sparkle, there was a powerful system of gossip, secrets, and whispers that shaped how the world saw actresses. From the 1910s to the 1950s, film studios controlled almost every part of an actor's life. What they wore, what they said, who they dated, and even what the newspapers printed about them. To keep audiences interested, studios often fed exciting stories to the press, especially stories about romance, betrayal, heartbreak, and desire. Newspapers knew these stories sold more copies than anything else, so they printed them again and again. Over time, many actresses became famous not only for their talent, but also for the rumors surrounding their private lives. Whether the rumors were true or not did not matter. What mattered was that people talked about them. Fans loved mystery, danger, and temptation, and Hollywood learned to use a hunger like fuel. Reporters would wait outside restaurants, hotels, nightclubs, and film sets, hoping to catch a star holding hands with someone new or stepping out of a car late at night. A photo like that could earn a journalist a small fortune. Rumors became so common that many actresses were given labels they did not choose, like temptress, bad girl, homewrecker, or dangerous woman. These labels followed them forever, even when their movies were forgotten. The saddest part is that many of these stories were completely untrue or exaggerated by studios trying to get attention. But once a rumor started, it spread quickly, especially because fans believed everything they read. Old Hollywood was not just about movies. It was about building legends, sometimes beautiful and sometimes cruel. Actresses had to live inside those legends, even when the legends had nothing to do with who they really were. And if a studio decided an actor should be known as promiscuous or scandalous, she had almost no power to stop it. That is why when we look back at this era today, it is important to understand that the stories told about these women often served a purpose: to make money, to protect powerful men, or to keep the spotlight on the studio system itself. What seems like a story about a wild woman was usually a story about a system built to control her. In the early days of Hollywood, actresses lived under strict contracts that controlled nearly every choice they made. Studios decided what roles they played, what they said in interviews, what they wore in public, and sometimes even where they lived. If an actress did something the studio didn't like, such as refusing a role, asking for better pay, or simply being too outspoken, they often punished her by leaking damaging stories to press. A newspaper headline could make or break a career. For example, if a woman challenged a powerful producer, the studio might quietly suggest to reporters that she was difficult, unstable, or morally loose. Audiences in the 1930s and 1940s judged women very harshly, so these labels stuck immediately. Once an actress was seen as promiscuous, even without evidence, she was pushed into roles that matched that image: seductresses, femme fatale, or women who ruined men's lives. The studios wanted to sell fantasy, and the easiest fantasy to sell was the idea of a dangerous, exciting, forbidden woman. This became a trap many actresses could never escape. Even if they behaved politely, worked hard, and tried to avoid trouble, the public preferred scandalous stories over truth. And because women had far fewer rights at the time, they could not fight back against lies in newspapers the way people can today. Tabloids were not afraid of lawsuits from women in the 1930s. And the studios supported the tabloids because they helped promote movies. This system was designed to keep actresses obedient. If a woman stepped out of line, the studio could threaten her with a ruined reputation. Many young women entering Hollywood were also taken advantage of by men in power, and when they spoke up or refused, the men spread rumors about them to protect themselves. This is one reason why so many actresses from this era were later described as scandalous or sleeping their way to the top. Sometimes the rumors were completely invented to cover up the behavior of male executives. Other times, small events, like having dinner with a co-star, were blown into dramatic stories about secret romances. Hollywood discovered that the idea of a sexually free woman shocked audiences, and shocks sold tickets. Instead of celebrating the talent of actresses, the system used their personal lives like advertising tools. This kind of control shaped the entire culture of old Hollywood, where women became characters in gossip columns before they became characters in movies. Understanding this helps us see that many scandals were not real scandals at all. They were tools used by powerful people to shape public opinion and keep control over the stars the same way they controlled the film's point. One of the strongest and most profitable ideas Hollywood promoted was the image of a dangerous woman. This was the woman who could walk into a room and make every man nervous. She seemed mysterious, confident, and a little bit wild. On screen, she usually played the femme fatale, the woman who knew exactly how to use her charm, the woman who men wanted but feared. Studios realized audiences loved this image, so they began to shape real actresses to fit the fantasy. A woman might have been shy or quiet in real life, but if a studio wanted her to appear seductive, they gave her roles, costumes, and publicity photos that sent a clear message. Publicists would plant stories about late-night parties, secret romances, or dramatic breakups to make her seem more dangerous and exciting. Even if these stories were not true, they became part of her public identity. Fans began to believe that the woman on screen was the same as the woman behind the scenes. This archetype became so powerful that actresses often found themselves trapped inside it. If they tried to take on more serious roles or show a different side of themselves, studios often refused, insisting that audiences only wanted to see the dangerous version of them. For many actresses, this meant their careers became limited. They were offered the same roles again and again, and their public image became a cage. Meanwhile, male actors could play heroes, villains, fathers, lovers, adventurers, and more. Their personal reputations were also protected more carefully. Men in Hollywood were often allowed to have public affairs or behave recklessly without facing career harm. Women did not receive the same freedom. The dangerous woman archetype became a way for Hollywood to make money, while also reinforcing double standards. The public enjoyed watching these exciting characters, but they often judged the actresses harshly for the same behavior they admired in films. This led to a strange contradiction. Audiences loved seductive women on screen, but criticized them off-screen. Even when actresses were simply living normal lives, dating, socializing, or being independent, the tabloids turned these actions into stories about promiscuity or wild behavior. Over time, the dangerous woman archetype grew into something larger, a myth used to explain anything that didn't fit society's expectations. If an actress refused to marry, she became unruly. If she had several relationships, she became immoral. If she spoke up about unfair treatment, she became difficult. These judgments tell us more about the culture of the time than about the individual women. The archetype of the dangerous woman became a shield that protected the studio system and male power, while the actresses themselves were left to carry the weight of a reputation they did not choose. Today, many historians look back and see that these women were not dangerous at all. They were simply smart, independent, and unwilling to be controlled. As Hollywood grew, so did the number of magazines and newspapers dedicated to celebrity gossip. These tabloids competed fiercely with one another, each trying to print the most shocking, dramatic stories. Facts mattered less than sales. If a headline hinted at romance or scandal, people bought the paper immediately. This business model created a system where actresses were constantly monitored. Paparazzi followed them everywhere, hoping to catch something that could be turned into a story. A simple moment, talking to a co-star, sitting in a car with a friend, or walking out of a hotel, could be transformed into a rumor with a few words. Secret meeting, new affair, Hollywood triangles. These were common headlines. Even when actresses lived quiet lives, tabloids invented drama to keep readers excited. Some reporters had deals with studios, receiving early information in exchange for protecting certain stars or attacking others. For example, if a studio wanted to distract the public from a scandal involving a powerful male producer, they might leak a story about an actress behaving improperly. The tabloid would print it immediately, drawing attention away from the real issue. This system harmed women far more than men, because society judged women's private lives harshly. A rumor that an actress had too many relationships could destroy her reputation, even if the rumor was false. Meanwhile, similar behavior by male actors was often ignored, excused, or even celebrated. Tabloids also created competition among actresses. If one woman was labeled scandalous, the press expected others to be just as exciting. Reporters would ask intrusive questions, hoping to provoke emotional reactions that made good headlines. Actresses learned to smile, stay calm, and avoid saying anything that could be twisted into a rumor. Still, no amount of caution could protect them. At times, tabloids would print stories about women who had never even met the man they were supposedly involved with. Because there was no internet, actresses could not quickly correct false information. Once a story was printed, it spread across the country, repeated by fans, radio hosts, and gossip columnists. Years later, people often forgot where the stories came from but remembered the actress as scandalous. This shows how powerful and harmful the scandal business was. It shaped how generations of people understood Hollywood. It also created a false history where actresses appeared wild or reckless when, in reality, they were simply caught in a system that profited from exaggeration. Today, historians often discover that many of the famous scandals from old Hollywood were either completely false or based on tiny events blown out of proportion. The tabloid business had one goal: attention. And sadly, actresses paid the highest price for that attention. Even though the public loved reading about scandal, the real lives of actresses were often much more complex than the story suggested. Many of these women came from difficult backgrounds, poverty, or countries affected by war. They arrived in Hollywood hoping for a better life, a stable income, and a chance to express their talent. Instead, they found a world full of strict rules and powerful men who controlled their futures. Rumors often spread about actresses who simply tried to survive in a system designed to exploit them. For example, if a woman refused to date a studio executive, he might retaliate by calling her cold or ungrateful. If another actress accepted invitations to parties because she needed connections to keep working, she might be labeled promiscuous. In both situations, the blame fell on the woman, not the system. Hollywood also lacked privacy. An actress could not go out for dinner without being photographed. She could not have a male friend without people assuming it was romantic. She could not end a relationship without tabloids calling it a scandal. Even when an actress tried to date someone normally, her relationship became public property. Fans commented on everything she did, and reporters waited for drama. Some actresses were also pressured into relationships for publicity. Studios believed that pairing two stars romantically, real or fake, would sell more movie tickets. Sometimes the actors agreed to these arrangements, but other times they were forced, especially younger women with little power. If the relationship ended, reporters created stories about jealousy or betrayal, even if the breakup had been peaceful. Another important truth is that many actresses were judged for behavior that would be considered normal today, such as dating multiple people in their 20s, choosing not to marry, or expressing their independence. Back then, society expected women to be quiet, obedient, and pure. If an actress lived differently, she was called wild, even when she was simply living her life the same way men did without consequences. This shows how rumors were often a reflection of social expectations, not actual behavior. Some actresses also faced depression, fear, or loneliness because of how the public misunderstood them. When people constantly talk about you as if you are a character instead of a real person, it becomes difficult to know who you are. Many actresses later said they felt trapped between their true selves and the image Hollywood forced on them. They were judged for things they never did, praised for things they did not feel proud of, and criticized for decisions that were not their fault. Understanding this helps us see that the so-called promiscuous women of Hollywood were not symbols of scandal. They were symbols of how rumors can shape a person's life more strongly than facts. In Hollywood, most power belonged to a small group of studio heads, male executives, producers, and directors. They controlled the money, the movie roles, the publicity teams, and the contracts. Women rarely had authority in the industry, and when they did, it was limited. Because of this imbalance, rumors and scandals often reflected the desires of the powerful men at the top. If an actress followed studio orders, she was praised as professional. If she resisted or demanded better treatment, she was labeled difficult, emotional, or unstable. And if a studio wanted to push her out, they could use the press to destroy her reputation. In this environment, a woman's personal life became a tool for manipulation. Executives sometimes controlled whom actresses dated or married. They arranged relationships between stars to create publicity, and they sometimes broke up relationships if they thought it would hurt the studio's image. This kind of control often led to rumors, because actresses had to appear in public with partners chosen for them. Even if the relationship was fake, the public believed it was real. When these relationships ended, tabloids printed dramatic stories that made the woman look unfaithful or confused, even if the breakup was planned by the studio. Power also influenced which scandals were published and which were hidden. If a powerful male actor or director behaved badly, the studio often protected him by taking attention away from his actions and placing blame on a woman. Many actresses were accused of ruining marriages, even when a married man pursued them or when the rumor was entirely invented. Meanwhile, men faced little punishment for the same behavior. This double standard made actresses easy targets. Rumors helped maintain a system where men stayed in control and women stayed dependent. Many actresses later spoke about feeling powerless, knowing that one false story could end their careers. They were always careful about how they acted, what they said, and where they went. But even their caution could not stop the gossip machine. Looking back, it is clear that rumors in Hollywood were almost never about truth. They were about power, who had it, who wanted it, and who was punished for challenging it. Understanding this helps us see why so many actresses from that era were labeled promiscuous. These labels did not describe their real lives. They described the fears and expectations of society that wanted women to behave a certain way. When a woman did not fit the mold, Hollywood shaped her into a myth, and myths were much easier to control than real people. Hollywood did not create the public's hunger for scandal. It simply learned how to feed it. In the early 20th century, movies were a new and exciting art form. People saw actors on screen and imagined they were magical, glamorous, and almost unreal. Fans wanted to know everything about them: what they ate, who they loved, how they lived when the cameras were off. This curiosity created a huge demand for personal stories about stars. Newspapers noticed this and quickly realized that scandal sold better than anything else. A simple romantic rumor could increase sales dramatically. Fans loved reading about secret kisses, hidden affairs, or dramatic breakups. Even people who claimed to dislike gossip often bought newspapers to read the latest Hollywood news. Scandal became a form of entertainment, almost like a movie of its own. The public did not always think about whether the stories were true. They were more interested in the excitement. The idea of a beautiful woman living a wild life was fascinating and shocking at a time when society expected women to be quiet and modest. Hollywood used this fascination to promote movies. If an actress appeared in a new film, the studio might leak a story about her supposed love life to get attention. Sometimes, reporters exaggerated innocent situations because it helped sell the fantasy of Hollywood as a place full of passion and danger. The public wanted to believe actresses lived dramatic lives, even when most of them lived very normal ones. Another reason scandals spread so easily was that movies created strong emotional connections. When a viewer loved a character an actress played, they felt like they knew her personally. They felt invested in her happiness and heartbreak. Tabloids used this emotional attachment to create stories that felt personal, making fans feel involved in the lives of stars. This relationship between fans and tabloids created a feedback loop. Newspapers printed rumors, fans consumed them, studios encouraged them, and actresses struggled to live under the weight of them. Sometimes actresses tried to correct false rumors, but the corrections never spread as widely as the lies. People preferred the exciting version of the story, not the truth. As time went on, rumor culture became so strong that many actresses were judged harshly for things they never did. A woman could be labeled promiscuous based on a single photo, a misunderstood comment, or a false claim made by someone trying to sell a story. The public did not question it because they had been trained to expect scandal from Hollywood. This hunger for drama shaped the careers and lives of countless actresses. It turned real women into characters in ongoing soap operas that played out in gossip columns, radio shows, and fan magazines. Today, when we look at old headlines, they tell us less about the women they describe and more about the society that consumed them. The public's hunger for scandal was not a reflection of the actresses. It was a reflection of what people wanted to believe. The biggest tragedy of Hollywood's rumor culture is that it often erased the real women behind the myths. Many actresses were talented, hard-working, intelligent, and ambitious. They had goals, dreams, and personal struggles. But the studio system often reduced them to one-dimensional characters: the seductress the bad girl, the troublemaker, or the scandal queen. These labels followed them throughout their careers, and sometimes even after their deaths. When historians look back, they often find little evidence supporting the stories that shaped these women's reputations. Instead, they find studio memos, stage photographs, and gossip articles written without sources. Meanwhile, the real actresses left behind diaries, letters, and interviews that paint a very different picture. One of women trying to survive in an environment that demanded perfection but also profited from scandal. Many actresses felt trapped between who they were and who Hollywood wanted them to be. If they tried to behave modestly, they were ignored. If they acted confidently, they were called arrogant. If they dated, they were called immoral. If they refused to date, they were called cold or strange. This impossible situation made it difficult for actresses to control their own narratives. They often had to smile and accept whatever story the studio created for them. The myth of the promiscuous Hollywood diva became a symbol used to explain why certain women were successful, instead of acknowledging their hard work or talent. The public was told they rose to fame because of their relationships. This narrative harmed many actresses by reducing their accomplishments to rumors. It also reinforced the idea that women needed male approval to succeed, while men were celebrated for their talent alone. Some actresses tried to escape these myths by choosing different roles, changing their appearance, or moving to other countries. Others retired early because the pressure and judgment became too much. Sadly, many actresses were remembered more for the rumors about their personal lives than for the films they made. This is one reason modern historians work hard to challenge old gossip and tell the truth about these women. They show how the myths were created and how unfairly the actresses were judged. Today, we know much more about how the studio system controlled its stars and how rumors were used as tools. This makes it easier to see the difference between myth and reality. The dangerous, scandalous woman of Hollywood was often just a character invented by people who wanted to sell stories. The real women were far more complex, interesting, and important than the rumors suggested. In recent years, there's been a growing movement to re-examine the stories told about women in old Hollywood. Historians, journalists, and filmmakers are uncovering evidence that many scandals were exaggerated or invented. They are correcting the record and showing that actresses were often victims of a powerful system that saw them as products rather than people. This rewriting of history is important because it changes how we understand Hollywood's past. Instead of seeing actresses as wild, immoral figures, we begin to see them as pioneers who challenge traditional expectations. Many of them fought for better contracts, fair treatment, creative control, and personal freedom at a time when women had very few rights. When we examine their lives closely, we find that the promiscuous label was often used to punish women who were ambitious, outspoken, or independent. Some actresses who were called scandalous later became activists or writers. Others used their experience to help younger women avoid the same traps. By learning the truth, we can honor their struggles and celebrate their accomplishments. Rewriting history also helps us understand the present. The same patterns of rumor, scandal, and judgment still exist today, although they may look different. Modern celebrities face social media rumors instead of tabloid headlines, but the pressure is similar. Women are still judged more harshly than men for their personal choices, and the public still consumes stories about scandal eagerly. By studying how Hollywood mistreated actresses in the past, we can recognize these patterns in the present and work to create a fairer system. The more we uncover about the old studio system, the clearer it becomes that many actresses were misrepresented. They were turned into symbols of desire or danger not because of who they were, but because the system needed them to fit certain roles. Correcting these false stories does not erase the past. It gives it depth. It shows us the real people who live behind the screen. People who faced pressure, judgment, and limitations, but also people who showed strength, creativity, and courage. This process of re-examining Hollywood's history is ongoing. New books, documentaries, and archives reveal more every year. And as we continue to uncover the truth, the myths lose their power. What remains is a more human story, one where actresses were not just objects of scandal, but individuals with agency, intelligence, and resilience. Understanding this helps rewrite not only Hollywood's history, but also our understanding of women's roles in entertainment and society. When we look back at the stories of scandal, rumor, and myth from old Hollywood, it might be easy to dismiss them as entertainment from a different era. But these stories still matter because they show how society treated women and how easily false narratives can shape someone's life. The myths about promiscuous Hollywood divas were powerful tools used to maintain control, protect powerful men, and keep audiences entertained. They were not reflections of the women themselves, but reflections of the culture that judged them. Today, we can learn from this by being more careful about how we talk about public figures, especially women. We can question the stories we hear instead of accepting them without thinking. We can recognize the difference between truth and rumor, between character and person, between myth and reality. These lessons are important not only for understanding Hollywood, but also for understanding how fame and power work today. Celebrities still face intense pressure, online rumors, and harsh judgment. The difference is that now, we have more tools to check the facts and challenge unfair narratives. By learning the truth about the past, we can create a more fair future. These stories also remind us of the strength and resilience of the actresses who lived through the studio system. Despite the rumors and challenges, many managed to build successful careers and leave lasting legacies. Their films, talent, and courage still inspire audiences today. Understanding the challenges they faced adds depth to their achievements. It helps us appreciate their work not just as entertainment, but as a product of determination and skill. The actresses of old Hollywood were not simply symbols of scandal. They were pioneers, artists, and survivors. They navigated a world that tried to control them, judge them, and define them. Yet many found ways to shine despite everything. By telling their stories honestly, with respect and accuracy, we honor their lives and give them the dignity they were often denied in their time. In the end, the history of Hollywood is not just a collection of films or famous names. It is a story of power, gender, struggle, and resilience. It is a reminder of how easily a rumor can become a legend, and how important it is to seek the truth behind the legend. When we understand the real women behind the myths, we see not scandal, but humanity. Behind the bright lights and glamorous premieres, many actresses of old Hollywood carried heavy emotional burdens that the public never saw. Fame came with attention, but it also came with extreme pressure, little privacy, and constant judgment. Actresses were expected to look perfect every day, act polite in every interview, attend every studio event, and maintain a spotless public image, even when their real lives were filled with challenges. Many lived with strict schedules that left them no time for rest or personal life. A typical day for a rising star might start before sunrise with hours of hairstyling, makeup, publicity photographs, wardrobe fittings, screen tests, and acting classes. After that, there might be meetings with publicists, rehearsals, or interviews with journalists who asked uncomfortable questions about their love lives. The workday often ended late at night, leaving actresses exhausted. Yet if they showed this exhaustion in public, tabloids described them as unstable or emotional, adding more pressure. Fame also limited who actresses could trust. People often approached them not out of friendship or kindness, but because they wanted attention, money, or a connection to the film industry. Some actresses were warned not to become too close with anyone, because a simple visit from a friend could turn into a damaging headline. This created a lonely world where it was difficult to know who genuinely cared. Mental health was rarely discussed at the time, and actresses who suffered from anxiety, depression, or fear had to hide their struggles because admitting them could damage their careers. Many actresses wrote in private diaries about feeling isolated or misunderstood, but the public never saw these sides of them. Studios encouraged actresses to hide their true emotions and show a cheerful face at all times. This emotional masking made it harder for them to deal with real problems. Some turned to unhealthy coping methods, while others simply buried their feelings and continued working until they collapsed. The public rarely understood the emotional cost of fame because the Hollywood system taught them to see actresses as symbols rather than people. Fans saw the beautiful costumes and perfect smiles, but not the long hours, the strict diets, the demanding producers, or the painful rumors. Because actresses seemed glamorous on screen, people assumed their lives were easy. The truth was much more complicated. Many actresses felt trapped between the expectations of the studio system and the desires of the public. Fame brought opportunities, but it also created a fragile world where one mistake or one rumor could destroy everything. The cost of fame was not measured in money or awards. It was measured in peace of mind, personal identity, and emotional well-being. Some actresses handled this pressure with strength and grace. Others struggled silently. But all of them lived in a world that demanded perfection, punished honesty, and used their personal lives as entertainment. This hidden cost of fame is an important part of Hollywood history because it helps us understand how the pressure of celebrity can shape a person's life in ways the public never sees. By the late 1940s and early 1950s, the studio system that controlled actors for decades began to weaken. Court cases, public criticism, and the rise of television changed the entertainment landscape. Actors gained more power, and independent production companies started to grow. This shift dramatically changed the lives of actresses. For the first time, many had the freedom to choose their own roles, hire their own managers, and speak openly about unfair treatment. Some actresses who had once been trapped by strict contracts finally found opportunities to shape their own careers. They could pursue creative roles, work in different countries, or take long breaks without punishment. However, this new freedom also came with challenges. Without the studio system controlling their public image, actresses had to manage their own publicity. Some used this opportunity to correct old rumors and show the world their true personalities. They appeared in interviews, wrote books, or shared personal stories that challenged the myths created by the studios. For many fans, this was the first time they learned the truth behind the scandals. But not everyone welcomed the truth. Some audiences preferred the old glamorous myths and felt disappointed when actresses revealed their real struggles. Others were surprised to learn how much control the studios once had. This period also exposed the double standards that had shaped Hollywood for decades. While actresses fought to rebuild their reputations, many male actors were celebrated for their independence and rebellious behavior. Society gave men freedom while judging women harshly for the same actions. Still, the collapse of the studio system helped bring an end to many of the harmful practices that had trapped actresses. They no longer had to pretend to be something they were not. They could choose meaningful projects, explore more complex characters, and build careers based on talent rather than gossip. Some actresses became producers or directors, breaking barriers that once seemed unbreakable. Others retired peacefully, grateful for the chance to live private lives after years of public scrutiny. In many ways, the fall of the studio system was the beginning of a new era of honesty in Hollywood. The fantasy world of perfect stars gave way to a more realistic understanding of actors as people with real lives and real challenges. This shift not only changed Hollywood, it changed how society viewed fame itself. The collapse of the studio system revealed how many stories from the golden age were shaped by power, control, and manipulation. It allowed actresses to reclaim their voices and rewrite their own legacies. And it gave historians a chance to look back with clearer eyes, uncovering the truth behind the myths that once defined Hollywood. Hollywood was not only a place that created movies, it also created ideas. The images and stories shown on screen shaped how people around the world viewed women. When audiences saw glamorous actresses dressed in stunning gowns, walking confidently or playing dramatic roles, it influenced fashion, behavior, and social expectations. Women who watched these films often admired the beauty and confidence of actresses, while men formed their own ideas about romance and attraction based on movie characters. This influence was powerful, even when the stories were exaggerated or unrealistic. Hollywood created an idealized version of womanhood that was often impossible to achieve. Actresses were required to have perfect hair, smooth skin, slim bodies, and expensive wardrobes. The public saw these images and believed that real women should look the same. This created pressure on everyday women who felt they needed to match Hollywood standards, even though actresses received help from makeup artists, fashion designers, and professional lighting. Hollywood also shaped ideas about women's behavior. Films often portrayed women as either innocent and pure or dangerous and seductive. These two extremes left little room for complex female characters. As a result, many viewers began to think of women in simple categories, similar to the labels tabloids use: good girls or bad girls. This harmed both everyday women and actresses because it ignored the full depth of who women really were. Hollywood taught people to admire certain traits in women, such as beauty, softness, or mystery, while discouraging traits like ambition, independence, or assertiveness. When an actress showed confidence or spoke her mind, she was often portrayed as difficult. When she refused to follow studio orders, she became rebellious. These labels influenced how society viewed strong women outside of Hollywood as well. Yet Hollywood's influence was not entirely negative. Some actresses broke the mold by playing powerful, independent characters who inspire viewers. These women showed that strength, intelligence, and courage were also admirable qualities. They challenged traditional roles and opened the door for more diverse portrayals of women on screen. Many actresses secretly fought behind the scenes to take on better roles, negotiate fair contracts, and prove that women deserve respect in the industry. Their efforts helped create a more balanced representation of women in later decades. Hollywood's impact on the world's view of women is complex. It spread unrealistic beauty standards and harmful stereotypes, but also created icons who inspired women to dream big and challenge social norms. The actresses who lived through this period were not just movie stars. They were cultural symbols whose influence reached far beyond the screen. Understanding this influence helps us appreciate how deeply Hollywood shaped society. It also helps us recognize the importance of telling women's stories honestly, without reducing them to rumors or stereotypes. The actresses of old Hollywood were not simply characters. They were pioneers who shaped the world's understanding of beauty, strength, talent, and possibility. The history of old Hollywood offers many lessons that still apply today. One of the most important is the power of media to shape public perception. Rumors, headlines, and dramatic stories can quickly become accepted as truth, even when they are exaggerated or false.